At first glance, Dan Patch looked like a lost cause. Born in 1896 in Oxford, Indiana, the colt had crooked legs, knobby knees, and such a sweet nature that his first owner thought he'd never be more than a delivery wagon horse. Neighbors even mocked him as Messner's Folly. But, with patience and training, Dan Patch grew into a towering 16-hand stallion who would change horse racing history. He was a pacer pulling a sulky rather than carrying a jockey. Once he started racing at age 4, he almost never lost. In fact, across nearly a decade on the track, Dan Patch lost only 2 heats early in his career and never lost a final race. He was so dominant that other owners simply refused to run their horses against him. Instead, Dan spent most of his career racing the clock. His most famous moment came on September 8, 1906 at the Minnesota State Fair, when he paced a mile in an astonishing 1 minute and 55 seconds, a world record that stood for 32 years. But Dan Patch's fame wasn't just on the track. When Minneapolis businessman Marion Savage bought him in 1902 for the modern equivalent of over $1 million, he transformed Dan into one of America's first mass-marketed sports icons. Dan Patch's name and face were everywhere on cigars, toys, washing machines, even automobiles. Silver-plated horseshoes, tail hairs, and pin-up photos sold for cash. Public appearances earned as much as $21,000 each, an unbelievable sum at the time. Savage even renamed his Minnesota farm the International 155 Stock Food Farm, built a horse Taj Mahal for Dan, and plastered his image on ads nationwide. Decades before Michael Jordan sold sneakers, Dan Patch was selling stock feed and household goods. Both horse and owner died within a day of each other in July 1916. But Dan Patch lived on as a symbol of speed, progress, and American showmanship. He wasn't just a racehorse, he was one of the very first sports superstars.